Hey, it's Karyn Bryant for MMA Heat. It's time for another post-fight analysis show. Of course, I'm joined by my good friend Steven Marrocco from MMA Junkie. And today we are talking about UFC Rio. First and foremost, Steven, one of the faster shows in recent history, huh?
We were talking about that earlier. Basically, it was one thing after another. You sneeze and the show was half over.
Yeah.
A lot of first-round stoppages, and, they just moved it on really quickly.
Right. It was interesting, though, I was watching with people who were new to MMA, and there were some teachable moments there, though, in the show with the stoppages and the DQ and stuff like that. So it was kind of fun, but I like when the fights go a little bit longer so you can explain some of the moves and this and that. But it was entertaining anyway.
Yeah, it was. It started out with a lot of decisions going back and forth, and then picked up in the main card a lot of amazing finishes. That first fight with the wheel kick knockout kind of jolted everybody awake and just kind of set the tone for the rest of the card.
Yes, and of course you're talking about Edson Barboza over Terry Edom, and that thing was a thing of beauty. It was and done for the year. I mean, that was like, what a way to start the year with a kick. I mean, what do you think of him in the division, though? People were talking about Terry Edom being sort of an up-and-comer, and now he just got KO'd pretty quickly.
Edom was a great up-and-comer. Yeah, like you said, it was a great up-and-comer. He's got some great submission skills and also a great, straight kickboxer as well. You have to look at the rest, the more seasoned wrestlers that he's going to face when he gets a little bit higher in the division. People are really high on him right now, and that's because of, he's just so crisp and so devastating on his feet. Mm-hmm. Kind of reminded me of Jose Aldo in the way he's, so devastating and has the ability to really change the story of a fight with, stuff like leg kicks. So, the one thing that the one caveat I had when I was watching the fight was that if he's getting taken down by Terry Edom, what's going to happen a little bit further up to the division?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Well, that's right, because, the lightweights are tough. It's not like that's the easy division. That's one of the most talented.
Yeah, so we'll see when he gets a little bit higher up. But he looks great right now.
Right, and that was fun. All right, well, let's move on to the disqualification. I mentioned that there were some teachable moments. A couple of things. Did you feel that was the correct call from Murgliata?
You mean from Yamasaki?
I mean from Yamasaki, right, exactly, about the DQ. Do you think that was correct?
Yeah, I think that he should have stopped it. If you see a foul in place, he basically claimed that there was fouls to the back of the head. If that's the case, then you need to step in and stop the bout, issue a warning, take a point, and then restart the action. Instead, he waited to step in and wave off the fight, and then said after the fact that it was a disqualification.
Well, and it was weird because I think a lot of people thought, okay, yeah, it was a TKO.
Yeah, it had all the hallmarks of a TKO victory, and I think everybody was literally going into the cage expecting him to say TKO, and then to hear that was odd because if there is a foul happening, you need to just you need to stop it. Sometimes you can't do that because it's in the middle of the action. You can't stop the fight without altering it. Right. But in that case, he probably had about 20 of those hammer fists before he stepped in there.
Yeah, it's weird. Now, if you're Carlo Prater, what do you think about that? Do you mean... you know what I mean? I always feel like when guys get a DQ win, you kind of just go, yeah, but it's not what you want.
Carlo Prater, I'm sure in no way thinks of that as a victory.
Yeah.
And he knows he got beat. He got caught with that knee right off the bat. Right. And he'll get another fight, I think, purely because there's a win on his record. Not because... I mean... That they paid Eric Silva like he won. They treated him like he won. He won't lose any stature, and Prater will basically, I think, guarantee another fight just to sort of clear the air from that that oddity. But you're absolutely right. It was a good talking point and a good illustration. The thing that I thought of when I was watching it is it brings up some interesting issues when you act as the de facto commission. Right. In a show like that, which is what the UFC does when they go to Brazil and when they go to London. How exactly do you deal with that? When usually there's... And I'm back. Did I disappear for a second?
I did. I was like, you're kind of moving.
Yeah, a little glitch in the Matrix. But anyways, when there's stuff like that happens, there's usually an administrative procedure for how they review these things. Right. And they do a lot of it behind closed doors. They, Keith Kaiser or George Dodd will actually talk to the referees and, talk through their decisions and sort of, make suggestions and sort of decide what to do moving forward. But in this case, when the UFC is acting as the de facto commission, it falls on Mark Ratner to basically say, hey, listen, you need to either do this better or something like that.
Right. But the interesting thing too is I got a lot of messages last night about Joe putting him on the spot in the octagon, asking Mario and this and that. It's like, well, how do you feel about that? I mean, because people are like, do you think that was the right thing to do? And I think you should ask for an explanation. I think that's legitimate.
I was a little bit put off by it at first because I thought it was...
He attacked him a little, but
yeah, he did. He attacked him a little. He was very direct. I don't know if I consider it an attack, but he was very, very direct.
Right.
And he basically said, I think he made the wrong call right in the octagon.
Right.
And it's highly irregular for the referee to get on the mic anyways.
Right. I've done it before, though. I've done that in the case of a controversy. Like I said, I think there's a reason to ask him what happened and why. I just usually would try to retain a little bit more neutrality in my tone.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think that, I thought about it, and I can completely understand where Joe is coming from. He was behaving as if, if he was at home on the couch, that's what he'd want to see. And that he'd want to see somebody ask those tough questions right off the bat, so there wasn't any questions hanging in the air. And I can understand it, but it was a little bit direct, and I felt bad for Mario because I'm sure he saw that replay, and his pride might have been speaking a little bit differently than what he knew was the truth. I mean, looking at that tape, that maybe one of those shots got in is illegal, and it's a very, very big gray area when you're talking about stoppages, where guys will often be in a position where they're going to get hit illegally anyways, by through the fact that they're in that position.
Yeah, yeah. Well, luckily the pace of the night wasn't slowed by that, because all of a sudden Toquinho comes out, Rousimar Palhares, and just bam, 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 63 seconds. Just shut him down. I mean, do you remember that other fight? Because he's had some funny fights where he thinks the fight's over, and then he gets tagged by Marquardt, or then he thinks this, then he hops on the cage, and the fight's not really over. But at least there was a definitive ending last night. That guy's a beast. How huge is he? How huge is he? Because he's not a tall guy. He's just like this truck that goes in there. And I think he's 5'8" and fights at 185. I mean, something insane. But that fight was definitely dynamic and a nice way to kind of shake off the ickiness of what just happened with the DQ.
It absolutely was. Although I got a little bit worried in the beginning when he hit him low.
Yeah.
And then he started approaching him, and the way that he was approaching was very kind of creepy to me. And it was like he wasn't listening, and he was like, you didn't know whether he was going to hit you or pat you on the head.
Right.
So I got a little nervous there, but he managed to, Macenzio recovered. Yeah. He went back in his corner.
Yeah.
And man, what can you say? Don't let that guy get a hold of your leg.
I know.
Or any appendix.
Or any part of you whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was intense. I mean, it'll be fun to see. I think that was his third win in a row now or something. So it's kind of nice to see what happens with him. I think he's certainly an engaging character in there.
He is. I think he's limited when you look at putting him up against the top guys in the division.
Yeah.
But what he does very well, and he certainly makes it intriguing. I mean, Dan Henderson, shut him down stone cold when he fought, and that to me was an indication of sort of his glass ceiling in the division.
Right. But I was going to say also the fact that a lot of the guys. I mean, obviously he's not getting a title fight, but if you looked at the lankiness of Anderson Silva and then you look at him, it's like, well, the guy's never going to be able to. Even, I mean, not never, but you know what I mean? He's going to face a lot of challenges, I think, just based on reach advantage and things like that.
Absolutely. He's a fire plug. Yeah. But, these guys are fun. It's like Edson with his striking and Rousimar with his leg locks. You need guys to come in there who are real specialists in what they do. Paul Sass with his triangle. And they make things interesting. Can this guy go on and do what he does, for the, nth time? So. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun part of the game.
It is. Well, now the game was a little crazy on Friday with Anthony Rumble Johnson not making his weight. Then the explanation coming out that he was very close to weight, but the doctors told him to rehydrate because he couldn't feel his legs. There's an interesting story going on, and we can talk about that. But regardless, let's just talk about that fight. Vitor submitted him in the first round. Vitor is still, I think, making up for the Anderson loss, obviously. I thought, that was the fight I expected in terms of aggression and certainly the sort of intensity at which they would attack each other, don't you think, or no?
Yeah, no, it was about what I expected. Vitor wasn't really successful, connecting with his hands, as successful as he's been in the past, and I actually thought that might be the case.
And do you think that's because Rumble's harder to hit, or just...
Rumble's great on his feet. Yeah. Rumble's, pretty good technical striker, been working with Kung Lee forever. And, not that necessarily gives him the gold seal of, being, the expert striker, but I think he's good enough to stay away from trouble, and away from those flurries of punches that Vitor is so good at. So I think that basically what happened was that Anthony just ran out of gas. He just ran, his kidneys are in open revolt, and he had a good spurt. He had a couple good spurts in him, and that was that.
Well, that's what he said.
He's been susceptible to rear naked choke in the past as well, so I wasn't surprised necessarily when Vitor spun around and took his back.
Yeah, well, and he did say that in the post fight that nothing hurt me. Those punches didn't hurt me at all. I just got tired, and I need to look into this, and I need to figure this out and fix it. Thing is, now he's got the time outside of the UFC since he's been released. Do you think that was the right thing to do?
I have a hard time saying just yes definitively because he's such an exciting guy to watch, and I think it's just a matter of we can't really trust you anymore to do what you say you're going to do. Who knows what this medical condition is that he's suffering from, and it could be something very serious. If that's the case, then the only thing I thought is, why not try and do it with diet as opposed to make a big, weight cut? Why keep doing the weight cut thing? As our medical correspondent, Johnny Benjamin, said, there's some, huge medical risks to undergoing, cuts of, 20 pounds or more. And, if rumors are true, this guy was cutting at least that, 2 weeks. These guys were starting from that point 2 weeks out.
Yeah, on that conference call, how he said he was so big, and you could sort of hear a collective from everybody on the call. Like, really? You're still that big? It didn't seem wise.
I don't know. I don't know if it's the right decision to cut him. It very much strikes me as unless the guy goes and signs with Bellator, it very much strikes me as a kind of situation where he might take take a couple fights in regional promotions at 205 or 185, annihilate them, and then be welcomed back with open arms.
And although Dana did say he's cut from the UFC, some people are saying, well, demote him to Strikeforce, which is kind of not the right word to use, but certainly Strikeforce could use people like Rumble.
Yeah, they definitely could. I think that demoting, as you said, is
wrong word.
It's not necessarily inaccurate. Okay, I mean, Strikeforce needs to definitely bolster their talent roster, and Anthony would be great for that. But I have a feeling that he's going to go out, get some wins in a couple of regional shows, and then come back.
Nice. Well, let's move on to the main event. A lot of debate here at my friend's house when we were watching whether or not Aldo's grabbing of the cage really made a difference, whether or not Chad would have taken him down, whether or not Aldo would not have been able to score that ridiculous knee and get the knockout and win the fight again. I just, regardless of how you feel about that, I thought Aldo was he's just such a beast. I just kind of felt like it was going to go his way at some point anyway.
I had this one wrong. I really, really underestimated Jose and his ability to keep Chad enough off balance to prevent Chad from doing what he does best, which is, double leg you and take you to the ground. There was no double leg. There was no double leg whatsoever. There was a single leg. Yeah. And I think, a guy like Jose is going to defend that all day. He's like BJ Penn in the way that he's able to stay on his feet, hopping on one leg. It's a similar skill set. But and then the uppercut came, and then of course again, like I was saying with Edson, that these leg kicks they're game changers,
right?
Because clearly he took a couple of those leg kicks and he wasn't exactly the same. He was a little bit tentative, he was a little bit nervous. He caught that uppercut coming in, and then finally he gets him down, and MMA fans like to pore over every little detail and say that he grabbed the fence. He grabbed the fence once, it happens. You warn him, he does it again, you take a point. He didn't grab the fence again. And then basically what did he do? He just turned around and, cracked him. So
laid him out. That was one of the most exciting knockouts I've seen in a while. I don't think the fence thing made the difference. I think it's I don't think it was a strategy. I don't think he sat there at home, drilling, grab the fence. You know what I mean? It's a reaction. It's a this, it's a that. I just think Aldo is just so ferocious. I think he just seems to. I mean, he hasn't finished any. Well, that was his first finish in the octagon. His last couple fights have gone to decision, but I just kind of feel like, and this speaks to some other themes of the night. I feel like it's a really tough call to beat a Brazilian at home, and I feel like when Jose ran into the crowd and that whole thing, like I felt like bad for Chad having to go in there and try to do that in Brazil. I just kind of felt like it's going to be a not in my house type of situation with Aldo that night.
Now the question I have for you is, what does he do from here? Because a lot of people are saying that he wants to go up to lightweight.
Right.
He wants to go up to lightweight.
Yeah, I mean, shoot. I mean, I guess he's pretty much taken all comers and beaten them all. I don't know who's there right now to really threaten him. He's tall enough to be a lightweight. He
is tall enough. I think he might be a little bit lighter than some of the bigger lightweights in the division, but I don't think it's going to be a really significant enough to keep him, to put him at a really serious disadvantage.
Right. Well, because think about how much bigger he looked than Chad last night.
Yeah.
I thought he looked considerably bigger.
You did.
Yeah.
Well, Chad, I don't know what Chad cuts from, but it seems to me like Chad could have the same path that Uriah did if he really, really needed to.
Could go down.
He might be able to diet down to 135. He's got a frame for it.
Right.
But I don't know. I was thinking about that before we got on this call, and I think it's obvious that there's some huge challenges, and I don't know if he's necessarily cleared out. I think he might have cleared out the featherweight division.
Yeah. Whoops.
There we go. He might have cleared out the featherweight division. There's Eric Coach.
I know.
I don't know.
K-O-C-K.
Yeah, I'm going to screw that up, and I'm going to catch crap for that either. But there's Eric, there's Dustin, there's Hioki. Those guys, I don't see any of them really beating him at this point because they don't. Chad had theoretically the kryptonite, right? The double leg and the rest.
Exactly.
These other guys might outstrike him, but I'm just not seeing that necessarily. Then on the other hand, if you want to put together a super fight with Frankie, has Frankie really cleared out the division? He's fought two guys in the last 4 fights. I think he has more guys to fight. There's Gillard and Miller are going to fight. Guida's always around. And then a lot of people are hyped on Nate Diaz. Yeah. And Nate Diaz's resurgence. So
Nate
I think
Diaz
there's
looked phenomenal in his last fight.
Right. He looked phenomenal. And so what I'm saying is I think there's more work for Frankie to do. Yeah. And I think there might be some more fights with, like a couple more. But I would support him moving up, if he wanted to.
Nice. And backtracking just a moment before we wrap up here, what do you think should be next for Vitor?
I was thinking about that, and I'm not quite sure. I mean,
it's weird because you're still not sure he should be the guy to get the title fight again. Do you know what I mean? It's not like he's necessarily the right guy in line for that.
Well, and I don't think Anderson's going to give it to him.
Well,
I mean, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that he's going to. I don't think he's going to get that fight again.
Yeah.
I think that was his time and his opportunity, and he missed it. Yeah. As to what he does from now, do you have him fight the winner of Sonnen and Sonnen Munoz? Maybe, maybe not.
Damian Maia.
Damian Maia is a possibility. Winner of Bisping, Maia.
Maia, right?
That's definitely a possibility.
That would actually be interesting. Vitor Bisping would kind of be interesting.
Oh yeah, that would be a huge fight.
Yeah.
And both of those guys bring really exciting styles to the table, and then you've got the Bisping heel factor. So, it's going to be an exciting matchup. But in terms of where his glass ceiling, to use that term again, Where is that? I think he might have already gotten to it. I don't know if he's going to get another title shot. And he's always, he's also close to retirement, as he said in an interview with MMA Fighting earlier. Or at least he intimated that he was close to it.
Yeah, interesting. Well, what's new for MMA Junkie? You guys doing that TV show?
We are doing the TV show. I think they're still putting it together, but I think sometime in the middle of the year.
Are you going to be on it, Steven?
It's possible. I hope to be. I think John Morgan is going to be the lead guy, and then maybe I'll pop my pale face in frame a few times throughout the year. But
John's no less pale than you.
What's that?
John is no less pale than you, my friend.
That's true. We both need a tanning salon desperately.
That's nice. All right, well, Steven, looking ahead, there's some fun fights, so we'll be doing this again in the next couple of weeks. There's a UFC on Fox show, UFC on FX. And, of course, then following that, Nick Diaz and Carlos Condit. So we're going to be busy, okay?
We certainly are. I look forward to next time.
All right, thanks, Steven. See you then.